It's great to hear from Brendan Wilson, the man who sold photocopiers. And 10 years ago, with his partner, Stephen Smith, started a business called Logistics Made Simple, or LMS now for short. We all seem to have companies that had a real name with real words prior, often the name of a founder or the founder's dad. But then we just changed it to meaningless letters, and we stand out with these letters. But LMS does mean Logistics Made Simple. And we're hearing about, Brendan, about the need in the transportation industry for operators and drivers. And it's a great field to study because our prosperity comes from shipping, and we order things on Amazon or from ABE, American Book Exchange, or other platforms. And guess how it gets to us? It gets to us by box, sent through the U.S. Postal Service, or the UPS, United Parcel Service, or other shippers. And that whole system, with huge rapidity and gigantic organization, gets some little box with a doodad or a gewgaw in it to us the next day. I mean, it's amazing to think how that works, how technology and human genius conspire together, if you will, to bring this remarkable benefit of a marketplace that delivers. Just the idea of a delivery is truly amazing. Of course, we have a government monopoly that eventually replaced and pretended to put out of business all first-class mail providers, and one that's drowning in debt, drowning in union labor costs and union legacy expenses on the pension side, and is a doddering giant for sure, that will be at some point just it'll be deleted, except perhaps in the history books, when you have shippers of all kinds able to send small documents, letters, even contracts and things by other services, getting to the other side of the country faster. Back before the monopoly took hold, you would have 5 or 6 deliveries of mail a day, with many shippers, many letter carriers. But that's been at the time of O. Henry, right? You read an O. Henry story, and you'll hear about multiple mail deliveries in the early 1900s. Well, David Toole is here, and transportation is a great topic, and I mention it because there is a reform that is dear to my heart. It's dear to my heart because I see something that other people don't see, right? And I want there to be a proper use of the transportation laws in our country to be aimed rightly at shippers and operators and drivers. And we heard from Brendan about the need for drivers, right? A driver is a person who, in the law, drives or carries or transports a load. Now, in his field, it's all objects, right? There are no people carried by the shippers that Logistics Made Simple and other companies carry. Trident, for example, Tranco, Coyote, they all are carrying objects and products, not people. But they are involved in transportation because their place of business is the road, and they have people who work for them as drivers and operators, and that's a legal category. And the question is that we're homebodies here. We're in Chattanooga, East Ridge, Saudi Daisy, Red Bank, and places near and far in the area. We are homebodies, and our concern now is what about people who are subject to this law by the police department? Your police department, they're made subject to the transportation law that is all about drivers and operators. And so for me, it's a great experience to have an interview at tea this morning with Cameron Williams. And do look at our chat. It's on the censorship page, the Facebook page, and it is still there. I'm not sure how long it will be there, but it has not been disapproved. And you can see it there. And it's possible that if it's disapproved for a boost, let's say I put $5 on it, it'll still be there, and you can look at it. But it's a chat with a man who is, you might say, the wrong color, right? He's the wrong color. And his concern is that if he asserts his rights, that he's going to be beaten by the police. And that's a concern that I asked Chief David Roddy to address. Is it possible that if a man like Cameron Williams, who may have an encounter with an officer in the near future and may be asserting his rights, right? He'll maybe demanding that the officer have probable cause for a real crime, and he's going to deflect the claims that the officer will impose, the mayor's officer will impose on this man in the car through Title 55 by saying, "Well, I'm sorry, not running my indicator light is not a crime. Okay, that's a transportation infraction. It's not a crime under Title 39, where rapes and murders and things like that are put in the statute books, right? Assault, those are all crimes. Transportation offenses are not crimes." And so David Roddy, the chief, Mayor Andy Burke, who allows this abusive enforcement to continue, have this question. We have a transportation industry in Chattanooga. It is a transportation hub, and yet the statute that makes Brendan Wilson's business prosper, the regulated area of transportation, is used against a man who's a musician and an artist, and whose place of business is not the road. It is the tavern. He is an artist. He also teaches classes. His place of business is the classroom, and he is under a civil death sentence. So how is it that that's right? How is it that that's just? And I'm really concerned about you, my listener, thinking that this is not important. I'm really, really concerned about it, because you think that, well, this is just a kind of patriotic constitutionalist on one of his jags, right? He just cares about the Constitution and constitutional liberties and statutory rights and being a belligerent claiming person, because that excites him. He thinks that that's really important. But what does that have to do with the humdrum everyday world in which I live, right? How does that affect me? Why would I care about some man who's black, who's African American, who's got a revoked driver's license? What does that have to do with me? Well, I think it has a lot to do with you, because the frame of thinking, the kind of thinking that allows that to go unnoticed, is one that is neglecting a scriptural admonition. And it's the whole demand by God that there be one law for the alien and one law for the homeborn, right? One law for the son and one law for the stranger. And that is a law that has been neglected. In fact, there are people who are professing Christians and who are conservatives who want that to be the case. They want there to be a police state for aliens and strangers, and yet they want to be free. They think that somehow you can oppress a stranger, a person of a different color, maybe a person of a different skin, melanin quantity, or language, and we can be free and prosperous and rich here in our country. And yet it doesn't work that way. God is a covenantal being, and if a people as a group oppress the poor, the widow, the orphan, and the alien and the stranger, then they are going to be in trouble. And this is David Tula's caller. What's on your mind?
David.
Mike.
I won't play devil's advocate here, and I'm not going to blame the police or even the city. I'm going to blame the people who voluntarily went and got the license. And one of the issues I think we forget is, if you buy a brand new vehicle, you get a used vehicle. If you have a loan on that vehicle, you agree in that loan to have a license, registration, insurance, and to follow all those rules under Title 55. And you do it by contract. And since everyone believes you can waive your rights by contract, and I'm the one that says you can't, but since everyone believes that, then wouldn't you agree, since you also agree that you can waive your rights, that you just waived your rights and you have to follow those rules because you agreed to it by contract, because obviously the bank wants to be protected. You're driving their property. You have an equitable interest in it. And just in case you get in an accident, they want to get paid for it because they actually lent you the money. What do you think?
Right. Well, you're saying that if a car has a loan, there are impediments to being a free traveler, a free range motorist, if you will, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, you're not free range because you agreed by contract to follow Title 55 and other governing. Now, if I were making the argument, I would say you don't have the authority to give up your rights. That's my argument.
Well, how would your argument apply if indeed?
But remember, I'm the only one that thinks that way. You know, I can't convince you that. I can't convince anybody else.
Well,
everyone thinks they can waive their rights. So,
well, Mike, practically the listener, we do waive our rights all the time, but we're waiving our inalienable rights, but we can't waive our unalienable rights. Do you think there's no difference?
You can't waive any rights. The rights under the Constitution, whether you want to call them unalienable or inalienable, or a recognition of what God has given you, there's 165 of them, 10 enumerated, and you can't give away what God has given you. Just like the Congress can't give the power of the president to go to war. Only Congress shall declare war. That power cannot be given away by Congress because it was not authorized by Congress. Nor did God authorize anyone or you, and if he did, please show me where it is to give away your rights. In that, I believe, I'll make your argument for you that you may be correct if you agree with my argument that you can't give up your rights.
Well, now, Mike,
if you believe you can, then everyone with a loan has to follow those rules.
Mike, you've got a great set of lungs. I want you to know that your lungs are terrific, and I think you would be a great singer. I'd like you to come to my tavern on Friday and entertain all my customers with a little bit of Italian opera, since you have an Italian background. Now, you agree that you do enjoy singing, and you're going to try it out, and we're going to sit down together now just over some tea, and we're going to have a little contract, Mike. The contract says for the sum of $130, you're going to come at 8 o'clock to my little tavern and sing a little bit of opera and make some jokes and use your terrific lungs to entertain my listener. Well, what have you done, Mike? What have you done with your rights at that point?
I haven't given my rights up.
Well, yes, you have.
What I've done is I, by contract, agreed to give you my time in payment and receive payment for that time. I've given up my rights.
Well, you gave up the right to use that time to instead maybe take a walk on the river park.
So where's the Constitution guarantee you your right to time?
Well, the Constitution guarantees the use of
privacy or time. Where does it say that?
Well, does the Constitution guarantee a right to travel, Mike? Which I'm alleging that it does. Where is that?
The Constitution does not guarantee you a right to travel. It has a common law right that dates back to the Magna Carta. So what I'm saying is, people have got to get themselves straight and understand what you're talking about. That's why I like you bringing this up, and jurisdiction and the law. And once they understand that, then they can make a choice. Our republic is about choices. If choosing to be involved in Social Security or not, choosing to be involved in Ponzi schemes, filling out papers, licenses, registrations or not, we have getting a Social Security or not. We have those choices. No one believes they do. You have that freedom. You have that choice. But one thing you don't have a right to do is give your rights up. That means in every prosecution, whether you ran out of that burning building and said, I set the fire, according to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, they can't use that against you. That they must find independent.
Is that in the Constitution?
Evidence.
Mike, is that point in the Constitution that you're making right now? Where is that found? What is that about?
Found in the 5th and 6th Amendments. You have it right. Do you have one right there? I think you used to have one.
I don't have it in front of me.
Okay. Well, it says that you're not compelled to give testimony against yourself.
Right. Okay. That's where the Miranda one comes from.
You know, what is testimony? That would be testimony. You're not compelled to testify against yourself.
Right. And there have been
compelled to testify.
And I was just reading in the scriptures this morning that for any crime such as a murder, there have to be 2 witnesses. There cannot be one witness to say this man killed that man. That is not sufficient evidence.
Right. But getting back to the vehicle code, people just have to stop volunteering. They stop volunteering, then they get back to traveling. I don't think most people really care. I think they like to be regulated. Most people like to be cheap. You know, I think, you know, and thank God there's a radio station that talks about individual freedom, because maybe 5% of the people actually care about that. You know, they'd rather give up their security, give up their liberty for temporary security. But if they understand the process that they can't give up their rights, then they may actually believe they have a right to travel. But if you can give up your rights by contract, and you agree to all the rules and regulations of the road, And remember, when we talk about giving up your rights, you can't give up your rights to another individual. Rights are put there to protect you from government. It's all a restriction upon government. It's not a restriction upon individuals. It's a restriction upon government.
Upon the magistrate. And what we have, Mike, what we have is what we think we have is Romans 13 government, where there's government is largely judicial in its ethic and its function. But what we have is a Romans 13 government, which will not let anyone buy and sell or move without the mark of the beast, the number. So we have the Romans 13 government is a free government, limited in its scope and its authority and its activity. It's not executive. Right. In the Revelation 13, where there's that mark of the beast, we have executive government, where it executes all things. Its will dominates over the will of all people in society.
And remember that case too, Hale versus Hinkle. There is a clear distinction between an individual and a corporation. So when you're being pulled over in your motor vehicle as a driver, there's this distinction that you are not operating as an individual. Right. You're operating in corporate.
And so it's a rebuttable presumption that I was telling Cameron Williams this morning, Mike, in our tea this morning at the tea room, that you have to rebut the presupposition that the officer has that you are a commercial user. And so when he demands your license and so on, you say, well, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're asking me for. I'm here as a matter of right. And if you have to state your probable cause to stop me, did you see me commit a crime? So you're demanding the full protections of the Constitution and not yielding, because when the cop comes at you through Title 55, and which has a very low threshold for probable cause. I mean, not using an indicator light is probable cause.
I think the best thing to do in this, I think many years, over 45 years, I think the best thing that's flying for a long, long time, I think normal stops is just to give your information and comply. It's no deal.
All right. Well, listen, we've lost Mike. I wanted just to mention the law in the scriptures. You shall neither mistreat a stranger nor oppress him, for you're a stranger in the land of Egypt. So that's Exodus 22. You have to have empathy for the stranger. And that's why my listener, who doesn't think that he thinks that somehow my care for minorities is misplaced. Well, no, it's not. And you shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the heart of a stranger, because you were a stranger in the land of Egypt. And I think we're, in a way, strangers here. We have been internally exiled in our own country by the operation of commercial government. We've been exiled from the prosperity of God, the vigor of God's claims upon us, and we live a very thin, unprosperous, kind of monotonous life in and under commercial government, which is there to regulate, supervise, control, and tyrannize over us and to terrorize us. The purpose of executive government is terror, state terror. The people have to live in fear of government. There shall one law be for the native born and for the stranger who dwells among you, not two. And so, as I'm telling Cameron Williams in our interview today, it's live on Facebook, The Great Censor, live on Facebook. Just go to Nougat Radio. The laws of God protect the poor. The gleaning law, for example, you shall not glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather every grape from your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I'm the Lord your God. The gleaning law lets the stranger work for his own sustenance, his own food. And if a stranger dwells with you in your land, you shall not mistreat him. African Americans are strangers in the land. I mean, many talk just like you, right? They talk just like you. They live just like you, but they are still, because of slavery and because of the shifting of the slave mentality from the individual plantation owner to the state, they are enslaved. Look at the prison population. There are more people in prison now than there were ever in slavery in the South. That's Leviticus 19. And further on in Leviticus 19, the next verse, the stranger who dwells among you shall be to you as one born among you, and you shall love him as yourself, for you were a stranger in the land of Egypt, and I am the Lord your God. Because God is God, the stranger has to be viewed with amity and love and affection. Where is that? You're my listener. You say you're a Christian. When's the last time you offered to help a Hispanic person? When's the last time you gave to a charity that deals with Hispanic people? When's the last time you personally went out of your way to pay some Hispanic brick makers bail because you got arrested for driving without a license? There is no crime driving without a license. It doesn't exist. And yet that's how it's described. It's an abuse of the statute. It's abuse of the 351 provision in Title 55. You shall have the same law for the stranger and for one of your own country, for I am the Lord. And if one of your brethren becomes poor and falls into poverty among you, then you shall help him like a stranger or a sojourner, that he may live with you. So if there's a poor neighbor, whatever his race, you have to help that person, just as you're supposed to help the stranger in your land. That's the admonition that Christians need to hear about on Sunday. They need to hear about this from the pulpit on Sunday. David Toulis, and the number to call when you call tomorrow, 800-8949. David Toulis, and now Sean Hannity. Yay!
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
The TBI is on the hunt after a non-custodial mother reportedly ran off with her daughter. 12-year-old Briella Reese Bowling is missing from her Smithville, Tennessee home. Police believe Wendy Hancock is the woman who took her. The TBI is on the lookout for a 2018 silver Chevy Equinox, tag number BMK994. If you know where they are, contact authorities. There's a new emergency management director in town. Chris Adams, former fire chief, was named to head the agency. County Mayor Coppinger said in part, "I watched his development as a leader and knew he would be a terrific addition to our emergency management team when he became available." And 2 cars went up in smoke on Highway 58. Reports say the 2 vehicles were completely consumed. Photos from the scene show thick black smoke billowing from the windows of the fire. Fire investigators working to figure out what happened. Val St. John for Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7, Action News Now.
Sam Jordan, News Talk 92.7 Action Sports Now. Baylor Swim Club and Baylor school head coach Dan Flack will lead the USA men's national junior team at the Junior Pan-Pacific Championships that will go on August 23rd through the 27th at the Damodar Aquatic Center in Suva, Fiji. Coach Flack has served on a number of national junior team staffs, and most recently last summer as an assistant coach on the FINA World Junior team. He also served as an assistant on the 2011 FINA World Junior team staff as well, and has placed 5 Baylor athletes on the USA Swimming National Junior team over the last several years. That included Arden Pittman, Spencer Rowe, Kristen Vetterveld, Sam McHugh, and Trey Freeman. Coveted men's soccer team was picked to finish in a tie for second in the USA Southwest Division as the conference released its annual preseason coaches poll on Wednesday afternoon. Each divisional preseason poll only includes votes from coaches within that particular division only. Sam Jordan, News Talk 92.7 Action Sports Now.